Hey everybody, Cliff Ravenscraft here from podcastanswerman.com, and you are watching the video recording of my live stream. I do this every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time at podcastanswerman.com/live. If you go there, you can see the schedule of the live events that I do broadcast originally on Ustream, and then I record them using some software here to make it available on my YouTube channel. If you guys are enjoying these YouTube videos, I love hearing that in the comment sections on the YouTube videos themselves. Some of you have been telling me about all the different ways that you are watching these videos and how it is actually something that's enjoyable for you. So I love hearing that, and it encourages me to continue to keep producing these videos, the recording of the broadcast for you on YouTube. Now, for those of you who are brand new, this is content that is actually created for audio. I'm not actually intentionally making video content for video purposes, other than to give you an over-the-shoulder view into how I do the production of my show. I do create quite a bit of video content for video from time to time on this channel as well. So if you want to subscribe, I'd love that. Anyway, did I just do that? My kids would kill me if they saw that I just did a thumbs up. But anyway, if you like the video, you can like it as well. Thumbs up. Anyway, I'm going to now ignore the video camera, and I'm just going to let you see over the shoulder into my studio here so you can see how I create this content for audio purposes. By the way, I've got my mixer over here, my microphone here, and down here I have a digital audio recorder. I have some software that has some audio clips over here, which basically those audio clips are going to go into my mixer and back into my recorder. And I have notes in front of me. And because I have a wonderful community of people who join me every Thursday, I have some folks in the chat room as well. So anyway, with all of that, let's get underway here with episode number 377. Podcast Answer Man, episode number 377.
Entertaining, educational.
Wait a second. You know what? I think that's wrong. Yeah, that is wrong. Hit stop. This is actually 367. Typo. Glad I caught that now. And I'm just going to go ahead and delete that recording. Today is the 24th, so confirm I delete the right file. And hit check 1, 2. We're going to hit take 2. All right. Podcast Answer Man, episode number 367. And of course, I don't have my button on the thing anymore. All right, take 3 in. Podcast Answer Man, episode number 367.
Entertaining, educational, and encouraging content that makes a difference. This is GSPN.TV. Join the community.
Hi, everyone. Dan Miller here from 48 Days Online Radio. Cliff Ravenscraft has been my podcast answer man ever since he was bold enough to ask me if I wanted to make my podcast a 10 rather than a 6. And from what I'm now hearing all around the world, not only is he my podcast answer man, he is the podcast answer man.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Podcast Answer Man. My name is Cliff Ravenscraft, and this, my friends, is the podcast devoted to taking your message, your business, and your life to the next level. That's right, it doesn't matter if you are brand new to this online content creating world that we live in, or if you've been creating online content for many years, there's something we can all do to take everything we do in life to the next level. Well, my friends, taking things to the next level is the theme of this show all the time. And today I am very excited to announce for the very first time my first one-day live event that I have just kind of hinted at way back in February, I think it was, when I announced that I was shutting down the podcast Mastermind after 2 years of running that organization. And today I will be telling you about my very first one-day live event. I'll be telling you where it's at and all that good stuff. But I'm not going to do that here at the front of the show. Instead, at the front of the show, I want to get right into your questions that have been coming in on the voicemail feedback hotline. If you guys have questions, I encourage you to leave them for me over at my website at podcastanswerman.com/feedback. Again, that's podcastanswerman.com/feedback. And if you do that, you can submit your questions for the show. What are we going to cover in this episode? Chris has a question. How can I create a brand new first episode? Jason, have you considered going back to recording directly into software? Chad wants to know, or actually Chad has a voice message. He wanted to let me know that, well, actually, I'll tell you what. I'll let him tell you why he purchased a Samsung washer and dryer and what that has to do with Podcast Answer Man. Garrett and Emmanuel had two questions. One was, how do you incorporate video into a mostly audio production? And then what do you do when what you want to do to take your production, your podcast, or actually anything in life to the next level? What do you do when that's just outside your financial budget? Matthew posted a question in the Podcasting A to Z alumni Facebook group today about how to handle a high-risk interview opportunity, or is it a high-risk interview opportunity? He's got questions about that. I'm going to share all of those things in this episode, so I hope that there's a little something for everyone here. And by the way, I am broadcasting live on the internet, and I see that Annabelle is in the chat room, and she says, I so want to go to your live event, Cliff. And Annabelle, I look forward to having you at one of my live events. I happen to know, though, that she is not going to the podcast movement in Dallas, so she won't be able to go to the first one. So I'm giving you a little hint of when my first live event might take place. But Annabelle, I certainly will make sure that you get the details on future live events as they happen in the near future. So let's jump right into questions first. Chris, take it away.
Hey Cliff, Chris from the nichesiteTools.com website. And my question this week is in regards to a suggestion I had from one of my email subscribers, and which was to go back and create an introductory episode for my podcast, which kind of explained, where I've been, the things I've gotten into as far as niche sites go, and just kind of tell the story of how I got started. And I thought it was a great suggestion, but I'm not sure how I can go about reinserting a new first episode of my podcast. That's basically what I'd like to do, so that it shows up as the first introductory episode before all of my existing podcast episodes. So any info you could provide on how I can do that, if I can make that a 0.5 episode or 1/2 episode rather than the first one, anything you can suggest would be great. Thanks so much, and great job on the new studio, and congrats on the new house. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Well, thank you, Chris. I'm very excited to be in the new studio in the new house, finally feeling at home here. And so thank you for that. Hey, about this idea that your audience has suggested to you, I think it's a wonderful idea. In fact, in my Podcasting A to Z course, one of the first things that I tell folks to do with their content is to create an introductory episode. Kind of just introduce, what the show is, what it's about. Tell a little bit about yourself. Why did you decide to do the show, and kind of what your idea of what you want to do with the show moving forward as your first episode. Now, some folks will take that and they'll create an entire full-length episode. Maybe if they intend to do a 30-minute show, they may do a 30-minute introduction. Sometimes, let's just say they have a 30-minute, they have a desire to do a 30-minute show, they may take 10 minutes of the first episode, and then the remaining 20 minutes they may actually go ahead and just launch into content. But either way, I do think it's a great idea to have a first episode that kind of introduces your audience to what your show is all about, especially at the beginning. I think it's much more important at the beginning than it is, let's just say, 30, 50, 150, or maybe even 367 episodes into the actual production of your show. But I do think it's a great idea. Now, if you haven't done this and you want to do this now, it is very easy for you, Chris, and anybody else that's listening to go ahead and do this. Now, if you're podcasting the way that I teach, which is using WordPress for the RSS, the original RSS feed where things get started from, it's real simple for you to do this. All you would have to do is backdate the post for which you were creating for this new podcast episode. So if I were going to do this, for example, let's just say I have 30 episodes in my feed right now, And the first episode, I didn't really do an introduction. It was just labeled 001 and whatever the title was. And then here I am, I'm on episode 030, and I want to actually do this. Well, if my first episode number 1, was published on January 1st, 2013, all I would need to do is create a brand new post inside of WordPress, just like I would a brand new episode. However, the difference is right before you hit the publish button, stop. And then right above the publish button, you're going to see a little thing that says publish immediately. And just to the right of that, you'll see a little link that says has the word edit, and you can click that. Now, if episode number 1 was January 1st, 2013, all I would do is I would change that to December 31st, 2012. So the day before the first episode actually went live, that's the date that I would put into this edited thing. Now, what will happen is once you do that, you click OK, and then you'll click publish. And when you publish it, it's actually going to publish it back in the archives as if it was published way back in December 2012. And as a result of that, in the RSS feed, it will show up chronologically in that fashion, so that if you have things set up the way that I have currently, where your WordPress feed goes into FeedBurner, and then FeedBurner actually takes that, and then that's what iTunes is looking at. From that point forward, iTunes will show that new episode way back there, that new episode that is before episode 001. Now, what do you want to do about numbering? You were saying, do I do 0.5 or whatever? I don't think you have to do that. If you wanted to, you could create you could have 000, an introduction. My recommendation, forget the episode number. Just put an introduction to this podcast or something like that. Why this podcast exists could be the episode title. It doesn't have to have an episode number, but if you want it to, it can. So, basically, here's another thing that I was thinking of as a result of these, some additional questions that come to mind. What happens if the core concept of your show has changed over time? So I know I've had, actually, can you believe this? My 390th person has just signed up for Podcasting A to Z this week. So there have been a lot of people since 2011 have taken my Podcasting A to Z course. Now, I've been giving this advice of recording these introduction episodes, but what happens that if you created that introduction podcast and you told people who you were, and then you shared why you started the podcast? That stuff hasn't changed. But what has changed is, let's just say you're 30 episodes in or 60 episodes in, and it has changed. Well, one thing you could do, and I'm not suggesting that you should, but one thing you could do is you could go back and re-record a brand new first episode. And you could basically, if I were going to do this, say, hey, everybody, my name is Cliff Ravenscraft. What you're listening to is the podcast Answer Man podcast. Now, this episode was originally recorded on such and such date. I think this one was like December 2006 is when this podcast started. However, I am now recording a brand new introductory podcast episode because here's the deal. This is who I am. This is why I launched the podcast. And this is what I thought this podcast was going to be about. And this is how I thought I would do things. But over time, this is what's kind of happened. And this is what this podcast has become today. So if you're starting here at the beginning, episode 1, what you're going to get is, for the first 50 episodes, we did this. And then around episode number 80, there was this twist and turn. And today, we're actually doing this, and this with the show. If you wanted to, you could go and do that, and it's pretty simple for you to go in and actually edit that post, the original post, and delete the original file that was in there, upload the new episode 001 into your media host, and then paste that inside of there, and it will update your RSS feed and everything like that. Now, here's the deal. Not everybody's first episode is going to be visible, especially once you get into the 367th episode of your podcast. If you look into iTunes, you'll notice that my listing in iTunes is only going to show you 100 podcast episodes. And that's because the first 266 episodes, as I'm recording this right now, are not available for you to get through the RSS feed. There are some reasons for that. I'm not going to go into that detail right here, right now. But the reality is that people are not going to be able to look down at my list and see that first episode. So I don't think it's all that important, especially when you're this far through. This is what I think is important, though, is that people get a good sense of who you are, why your podcast exists, and what your podcast is about within the first 90 seconds of every single episode. That's why at the beginning of the show, I say, hey, everybody, you're listening to Podcast Answer Man. Welcome back. My name is Cliff Ravenscraft, and this is the show devoted to taking your message, your business, and your life to the next level. This isn't just about podcasting, although you can assume that we're going to talk a lot about podcasting here. But this is about taking your message to the world. This is about taking that message to the next level. What can you do to get one step further towards your goals in your getting your message out, getting your business to that next level, getting your life to where you want your life to be? And so I communicate that at the front of the show. Now, here's one other thing that you can do, and I do recommend this very highly for everyone, and that is that obviously you should have a website for your brand, for your podcast, for whatever it is that you have that you're creating a podcast for. You should have a home base on the internet that is your website that you own and control. And I encourage you to have an about page that tells your story, that tells people what you're about, what you are doing. And what you can do is say, hey, for those of you who are brand new, or I could actually, if I wanted to, you could do something like, hey, everybody, welcome back to the Podcast Answer Man. This is all about taking your message, your business, and your life to the next level. Hey, for those of you who are brand new and you're not exactly sure who I am and what I'm about, head over to podcastanswerman.com/about. And there's a video there that tells the whole story of how I got to where I am today. Now, in today's show, we're going to do this. And you don't have to do that every single episode. You could do that sometimes at the front of the show. You could sometimes put that at the end of the show. But whatever the case may be, you can let people know, hey, if you want a little bit more of a inside scoop on who I am and why on earth am I creating this content, why should you have any interest in listening to me at all? Well, all of that can be found out in this great post on my site at podcastanswerman.com/about. Or just go to podcastanswerman.com and click the About page. So there you go. And of course, the About page could be audio. You could embed an audio player on there. You could write out your bio, or you could, if you want, create a video. And of course, I've got a little bit of everything on my site. So go check it out. Matter of fact, if you're brand new to this podcast, why don't you go ahead and head over to podcastanswerman.com/about and watch the video where I actually share my story about how I got into podcasting and a little bit about how my journey went from podcasting as a hobby until it became a full-time career. And at least that video will show you what happened all the way going up through December 2012. Lots of fun there. Chris, thank you for your question. I hope that's been helpful to you. We're going to move on to Jason. Take it away, my friend.
Hey, Cliff, this is Jason Pecor from Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I have a question for you regarding your audio equipment setup, your studio setup, and thoughts you may have about changing your workflow. So as you promote, you like to use the additional or external digital audio recorder. When you do your recordings, you go from your mixer right into that, and then you pull the SD card and do your editing and Audition. And I understand you moved in that direction originally, at least as my understanding is, because of the noise you were picking up, electronic noise with fans and stuff like that in your original machines that you were using. However, with machines, for example, like I've got a MacBook Pro Retina with a solid-state drive, there's no machine noise there to worry about, or the static or noise associated with that is very negligible. And so what I'm wondering, I've been going directly from my mixer directly into Audition and recording directly there, and just using Audition in real time as I'm recording podcasts and doing episodes and doing things like that. And I'm wondering, one, if you've tried that, or if you've thought about making changes to your setup as you're putting together your next level studio and adding new gear and changing how everything's kind of configured. Are you finding that you still recommend or would like to use the external digital audio recorder as a continued workflow from a hardware perspective? Or would you look at possibly going directly into Audition? And if you have any cautions or thoughts about going that route. So that's all I have for today. Hope to hear about this and hear from you maybe at some future Podcast Answer Man episode. Thanks, Cliff.
All right, Jason, thank you for your question. Here's the story about why I record into a digital audio recorder. And you're certainly correct that there are, one of the reasons is that I was concerned about buzzing noise, humming, and not necessarily computer fans. That was never really the issue for me. But what was really the issue was a little bit of a buzzing or a hum sound that's introduced by internal components of your computer. Was one of them, and it's not the biggest reason by any stretch of the imagination. But interestingly enough, Jason, I was listening to you really close in my headphones, and probably 9 out of 10 of you will never in a million years pick up on it. But in your audio feed, there was a little bit. It is the ground floor level noise floor was so minute, so barely there, but I did hear a little bit of a sound in your recording. Now, would I ever pick up on that if I weren't listening for it? No. Would the average person ever pick it up if they are listening for it? Probably not. But I'm a little bit of an audio snob, so I do hear it. And by the way, it's definitely not at a level in your recording that I would have ever even thought about it if I weren't listening. And also, in all fairness, I will tell you, your audio came in via the SpeakPipe. I think you sent it. You must have uploaded it that way or recorded it into SpeakPipe. And the other thing that I will tell you is that the audio volume of that was at a much lower level than what I normally use when I bring audio clips into the show. And so I did amplify your audio to bring it up to the same level as all my other audio feedback that I'm playing in the show. And so in all fairness, I did raise your noise floor, and that's why I hear it. And so probably if you were putting your episode into the podcast without doing the amplification that I did, I may not even hear it if I were listening to it. But it's there. It is there, and I amplified the audio, and therefore I just heard it when I was playing it back. Let's just put it this way. On an audio quality out of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best, your audio quality there, even with my amplifying it, I would give it a solid 9, 9.5. And if I wasn't listening for that, I would even probably give it a 10. So you have nothing to worry about with what you've got going on there. Now, that is not the reason, though, why I've got it. And by the way, you said that, well, you have a solid state drive now and stuff like that. I'm telling you, there are still radio transmitters in there. There are Bluetooth transmitters in there. There are all kinds of signal processing and all kinds of stuff that's going on. You're hooking up USB things. You have the possibility to there's all kinds of signal noise that can still be picked up inside of software that you're not necessarily going to hear as it's being recorded. And you may have a situation where this doesn't happen to you let's just say you have 100 episodes and 99 of them, it's never happened before. But just before you recorded that 100th episode, maybe the week, maybe 2 days before, you plugged in your scanner. You got a new scanner and you upgraded, and everything looks fine and stuff like that. But now it's actually introduced some kind of signal noise inside of the computer for whatever reason, and it's not detected until after you finish that amazing interview with that person that is the absolute A-list of the A-listers that you can't even believe you landed, and boom, behind the whole thing, it sounds through the whole back of the recording. It really stinks when that happens. But that is one of the reasons why I don't record into software. The biggest reason, though, that you didn't actually cover is software crashes. I am an Apple snob. I am a Mac fanboy. All of that stuff. I am that. As a matter of fact, I used to hate people like me with a great passion, but now I understand why they were like that, because, well, Apple rocks. But anyway, the fact is that here's the deal. I love my Mac, but guess what? Software still crashes from time to time. Sometimes things look like things are going just the way they should be, but for whatever reason, boom, you went to hit the stop button, and the next thing you know, you get the spinning beach ball. Or even, of course, I'll say it happens more often on a Windows system, but the reality is sometimes the software just like freezes for a second and then just goes away, and it relaunches, and it's like, hey, we noticed that this relaunched. Do you want to send some feedback? So it really does stink when that happens. And here's the thing. That's a situation where it may not ever happen to you, like for hundreds of episodes. And I'll never forget, it's way back in the archives of Podcast Answer Man, and I don't even feel like looking it up. But there was one person who gave me some audio feedback after I shared all this information. Gosh, this is back in maybe the 130s, anywhere between 100 to episode 150, 170, maybe between 100 and 200. Anyway, I had been sharing this same message over and over again. This is why I record. This is why I love recording into a digital audio recorder. But what happened was I had this one guy, he just kept going, I've been doing it this way forever and ever, and it's never had a problem. And I've never. And he went on and on in this feedback. He left me 3 different rebuttals over the course of time. I only played 2 of them in the show. But 6 months, 8 months later, I don't know how long it was, but eventually he wrote me an email. And I think he even played it. It's left me some audio feedback, and I finally played it. And it was something like, Cliff, man, I never thought these words would come out of my mouth, but you were right. I was wrong. And he had lost one of the biggest interviews he had ever had because he had always recorded into GarageBand, and it had never failed him. And then all of a sudden, he tried 3 times, and it crashed all 3 times, and lost the interview, and was not able to reschedule it. So, I never want to be that guy that says, I told you so. But the reason, the software, computers are designed to do so many different things. And I know there are so many people out there that record hundreds of episodes and never have a problem. But what happened was for me, and this was back in my Windows days, out of the first 100 podcast episodes that I recorded, I lost 3 of them. All right, so that's a 97% success rate. Yay! But the 3% that I lost, 2 of them were not a big deal. One of them was a huge deal, and it was devastating when I lost that episode. And I swore to myself, I've got to find ways to never lose these things again. And well, my solution was getting things out of recording into software, and where these computers are so prone to crashing software. I mean, we're always Windows, Mac, all of us, we're updating our iOS, or our operating systems all the time. Hold on one second. My daughter's coming in, so it's got to be important. What? The lights are red to let you know I'm recording. And what's this? Okay. Okay, thank you. All right. And I'm back. Anyway, sorry about that. My daughter had to give me a little piece of paper here. Anyway, so I forgot what I was saying, but the reality is that you can have this and it never happens to you. But if you're going to record directly into Adobe Audition and you're satisfied with the results, I think that's great. I really do think that that's wonderful. I don't have, in my A to Z course, I never try to convince people to do things my way. I don't at all. It's not how I do things. I don't think that you have to go through the added expense. But just know that when you record into software, there is a very real possibility that things could go wrong. And they do sometimes go wrong. And I will say that, it's not a matter of if, but it is actually, depending on how long you go, it is eventually going to be a matter of when is this going to happen to you. And I still believe that strongly. I will still say it today. It may be your 1013th episode before it happens to you. But it's not a question of if you're going to run into a problem recording into software. It is a matter of when. Now, with that being said, for folks who are recording on a tight budget, I'm always suggesting, you can get the Skype recording software to record those Skype calls. You can do this, you can do that. It's a whole lot less expensive than buying all of this hardware. It's certainly a lot easier than setting it all up and configuring it and learning how to use it. I mean, there's a huge learning curve to all this stuff. I mean, if anybody told you that this podcasting stuff was easy, they lied to you. Yes, it can be easy, but doing it the easy way isn't always going to be the way that's going to give you the least amount of heartache and frustration over time. So, but the reality is that I realize and recognize it's like, okay, let's do this at this level, and sure, it's not a problem. So here's the thing, Jason, for you said, do I have any suggestions for you, any kind of warnings. Number one, it's not a matter of if you're going to have a problem recording into software one day. It's a matter of when will it happen to you. And my recommendation is that keep recording. If you like the Adobe Audition recording directly into it, and you don't have to swap your SD card out and move it over and open it up and all that other stuff. If you love the convenience of what you're doing, keep doing it that way. But if you can afford it, I recommend that you have a digital audio recorder and some method of getting that recording or that same recording into your digital audio recorder at the same time, so that maybe a digital audio recorder could be a backup for you down the road when it makes sense for you to spend that kind of money, if it ever does. But anyway, are there other reasons, benefits of having a digital audio recorder versus recording to the computer? One, I love right in front of me, I'm staring all the time at the audio levels. I see my audio levels right now. I know exactly how much volume my recording is getting of my voice. When I played the audio feedback before, I could see exactly where the audio levels were hitting. If I was talking to somebody on Skype and they were really loud when I first started talking, but they started to kind of move away from the microphone and they got softer, I can see that right in front of me. I can take my finger over to the mixer and turn their audio up a little bit and compensate it for it. And if they all of a sudden stretch and then they get closer to the microphone and I see that their audio levels have gone up because they got closer to the microphone, I can bring it down. I can see all of that live in real time. There are many reasons I love a digital audio recorder, why I will do this. And yeah, that's why. So there you go. And not to mention the fact it's nice to have something like the digital audio recorder to take in the field with you to record little recordings of interviews and all kinds of other stuff while you're out and about and things like that. All right, next question, or actually not a question, feedback from Chad. And I'm going to play the whole thing for you. And you're going to ask, matter of fact, I want you to ask the question. I will tell you why I'm including this in Podcast Answer Man. And let's see, as you're listening to it, if you can think of why I would actually even consider playing this in Podcast Answer Man. Chad, take it away.
Hey, Cliff, it's Chad Eddy from chadeddy.com. I wanted to call and let you know I just bought a Samsung washer and dryer based partly off of your recommendation on your recent Family from the Heart episode. We are moving into our new house, and we're very excited, moving all the way across the country, well, halfway across the country, from British Columbia to Manitoba. We get possession July 1st. And it's a new house, so there's no washer and dryer in there yet. The other appliances were included, but we had to buy our own washer and dryer, so I was happy to take your recommendation. I'm pretty excited about our new washer and dryer, as I know you can relate to, because you're excited about your new washer and dryer, and looking forward to what the Samsung people can bring me there. So anyways, all the best to you with your move. I'm sure you're getting settled into your new place now, and I'm looking forward to getting settled into my new place in a couple of weeks. Anyways, I'm always glad to hear you on Family from the Heart and on Podcast Answer Man, so I'll continue listening, and I'll talk to you later.
Hey, Chad, thank you so much. And I just listened to that, and this is the first time I noticed what the noise was in the background, but it was very clear the second time. That's thunder in the background. I love a good thunderstorm. How awesome is that? So why did I play that on this show? And by the way, I did edit it down just a little bit. He went into a little bit of detail about the differences between the washer and dryer that he purchased versus the one that I got. But anyway, so why is that why did I include that in Podcast Answer Man? Well, last week's episode, remember I told you it was all devoted to how much should I charge my sponsor? How much should I charge my sponsor? And so he's talking about Family from the Heart. This is a show where my wife and I get behind the microphone and we just talk about what's going on in our family, what's going on in our relationship, what's going on in our lives. And it's kind of like an audio reality show, if you will. And that's what we do. And of course, we recently moved, as you guys all well know. And we shared a lot of details about all of the different purchases we were making. And the reason why I included that is to show you the amount of influence that you as a podcaster can have with your community when they get to the place where they really come to know, like, and trust you, to the point where they say, you know what, I trust when Cliff said he went and did all the research, spent hours looking at all the different washer and dryer options, looking at all the features and functions that they have, and also And what really tipped it over is that it came out to the top 3, and he decided to go with Samsung. And the reason why he said he went with Samsung was because of their customer service rating from all the various different independent sites. And then he shared his story about his experience with Samsung. And wow, if anything ever happens to my brand new washer and dryer that I'm going to buy, then I'm certainly going to go ahead and benefit from Cliff's research. I'm also buying Samsung. So that, my friends, is why Chad and his family, moving into their brand new home, that's why they're going to have a Samsung. So from this point forward, this is so cool. I mean, they could have gotten anything. They could have got Maytag. They could have got GE. They could have got anything. But from this point forward, when Chad goes into the laundry room and sees that Samsung, from this point forward, he'll always remember, I purchased this because Cliff's testimony about what his experience was with research and everything, and what Heath said about Samsung. And so I think that's pretty exciting. And I thought that you should know that, because you never know. And by the way, Samsung did not sponsor that episode. It was just us telling a story. And yet I don't know what that was for him, but I would imagine it's anywhere between a $1,500 to $2,200 purchase. And the weight of that purchase, the decision was made based upon our podcast. So I think that's pretty darn awesome. Anyway, that's why I shared that. Chad, congratulations on your new house. It is now 24 days later. I assume that you are moved in, and I assume that the washer and dryer is there. I hope it's working well for you guys and that you're getting settled. And God bless you guys, and congratulations on the new place. I think that's pretty awesome. All right, next up is Garrett and Emmanuel, but I do this every single time before playing audio feedback that contains 2 questions. I'm not upset, angry, or frustrated in any way, shape, or form, but I will tell you that I do make it a point not to include several audio feedback recordings sent to me because they have more than 1 question in them. But every now and then, I think that the questions that are asked are valid enough that, I really do want to cover these. So the only thing I ask is, folks, if you want to call in more than 1 question to Podcast Answer Man, do me a favor, make 1 recording per question, please. But with that being said, Garrett and Emmanuel, I'm very happy to hear from you guys, and take it away.
Hey, Cliff, this is Garrett.
And I'm Emmanuel.
And we're from the Redline Radio podcast station just outside of Houston, Texas. You can find us at redlineradio.weebly.com. We have 2 questions for you, 1 for each of us. And I hope to keep them really brief, so let's go ahead and start with Emmanuel's question.
All right, my question is going to be, how do you integrate video into a mostly audio internet radio cast?
And I have the question, what do you do when taking your podcast to the next level? What you know you need to do is just out of financial reach. I hope you can get to both of these questions sooner or later. I really appreciate what all you've done for us at the podcast, and I hope to hear more great stuff from you soon. So once again, this is Garrett Moore.
And I'm Emmanuel.
From Redline Radio, signing out.
All right, Garrett and Emmanuel, thank you so much. And let's see here. I'm not exactly sure what you mean when you actually say, how do you incorporate video? But I'll give you my best translation of what I think you're saying. And I'll share with you how I incorporate video into what I do here with Podcast Answer Man. So, and by the way, I don't know anything about online radio, but I imagine that you are not just streaming audio, but you're creating podcasts as well. But regardless, if you have something that's audio, mostly audio only, but you need to actually show somebody something, then this is what I do, and this is how I recommend that you do it. Number 1, first of all, let's go back to what I shared earlier in the episode. I assume that everybody who has a brand of anything has a website, a home on the web, that one place that is the repository of everything that you do, and it's all brought there. So, for example, mine is podcastanswerman.com. That's my website. That's where these podcast episodes can be found and searched. It's where I have written blog posts, and it's also where I have video blog posts or just videos in all sorts of places. So, for example, right now I am recording the video broadcast of this live stream because I'm actually live streaming so people can see behind the scenes of what it looks like when I'm producing Podcast Answer Man. They don't only get the edited, or actually this one may not have any edits at all, but anyway, they actually get all the failed attempts at the beginning of the episode. Like, for example, I started this off I think 2 times and I got it wrong. The first time I said Podcast Answer Man, episode number 377. Well, I had a typo. It's actually 367, and I caught myself, so I stopped and restarted. Anyway, the folks who watch live, the live broadcast, they get an over-the-shoulder, behind-the-scenes look into how I produce these shows. And so what I do is I actually now record those, and I've been sharing my journey in the process of getting to where I'm doing that. And I publish those to my YouTube channel. So I recommend that not only do you have a website, but you also have a YouTube channel for your brand. All right. Now, what I do is I upload my recordings, my videos to YouTube. And then what I will do is I'll take the YouTube video, and it's very easy for you to embed, to get some code from YouTube and embed the video that you've uploaded to YouTube right into your website. And what I would do is I would say, for example, if you guys want to see the failed attempts of how it looked when I actually, misfired on the recording of the opening of this show, if you want to see that, go to podcastanswerman.com/367. See, now I'm incorporating the video. If you want to see how I failed at the first 2 attempts of recording this episode, go to podcastanswerman.com/367. And then click play on the video that you'll see inside of the show notes, and you'll be able to see it. That's me incorporating video. Now, there are some other things that I can do. For example, it's like, hey, folks, I have this, these lighting kits that I have up here that are over top of me in my studio. And, I could try to tell you how to install these lights, because they don't come with instructions. They're absolutely horrendous to put together. And I had to teach myself how to do it. And then I decided, you know what? I'd like to share with you guys. If I know some of you who are doing more and more video. And, with one of the aspects, there are 3 things that are really important with video. Number 1, you want a good camera that's going to give you good, crisp, clear pictures. Number 2, you must have great audio, in my opinion. And number 3, you have to have awesome lighting. And so I bought some inexpensive lights, Cowboy Studio lights, a long time ago. And when I learned how to put them together, I created a video showing myself putting them together so other people wouldn't have to go through what I went through. And I uploaded that to YouTube. And by the way, I'm going to go there now. It's podcastanswerman.com/lighting. Now, this is me in my old house. I don't think that I fixed my hair that day. I mean, it's a pretty raw video. Yeah, my hair looks horrible. Everything. But you know what? Who cares? It was a 15-minute video on how to hook up and put these lighting things together. Now, what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to click over here. Ooh, that's loud. I'm going to click on YouTube. 23,552 views on that video. And so this is why I love to incorporate video into my audio this way. So what I do is I create the video. I create a page on my site. Sometimes I'll just embed it in the show notes. Sometimes I create a page or a blog post or a video blog post or a blog post with video included of the whole thing. So for example, podcastanswerman.com/lighting is a blog post on my site. It's not a podcast episode. It's a blog post. But I create the blog post. I have the video in it. And then what I do is I go to my next episode and I say, hey guys, this week I did this, this. And if you decide to get it yourself, then what I recommend is that you I recommend that you actually go to podcastanswerman.com/lighting, and you can see how to put these together. And of course, lots of people did that. And the added benefit here is that Google's YouTube is the YouTube is the number 2 search engine in the world. And so people are searching how to do things like how do I set up this softbox lighting system? How do I assemble a Cowboy Studio light system? And people find me. And as a result of that, they find me. And of course, in your notes on your YouTube posts, you can put links back to your website, and it potentially drives even more people to you. So anyway, that's how I would incorporate video into a mostly audio production. The next question was, how do you, or what, let's see here. What do you do when you know that what is needed to take your podcast to the next level is just outside of your financial reach? So I think that was the question. The idea here is like, okay, we know what we need to do to take our podcast to the next level. We know exactly what's necessary. We even know how much it is, and it's just outside our financial reach. How do you handle that? Well, I believe this is handled exactly the same way as anything you want in life. I really do. I will share it with you, and I've learned this, and I've practiced it over and over and over again. Here are the steps. Number one, believe that it is possible for you to achieve what is necessary. Believe it's possible for you to generate the finances necessary for you to do whatever it is that you want to do to take it to the next level. Believe that it is possible is number one. Number two, after you believe that it's possible, you set it as a goal. You say, hey, I want to do this. Now, you can go about finding all things about setting goals and stuff like that. Some people tell you they have to be time-bound and they have to be specific and all of those other things. And certainly those things will help you a great deal. But for me, it's more in the mindset of, yes, I am going to achieve that. It's more than anything, it's not about I am going to do it. I believe it's possible, and I desire to do it, and I'm moving forward with it. I'm moving forward with this as my goal. I'm moving forward with this as a destination of where I want to go. All right, so number one, believe it's possible. Number two, set it as a goal. The third thing to do is to tell other people about it. Actually, you know what? There's another thing in here. Before you do that, before you tell other people, write it down. All right, and this is very important. This has more to do with the way that our brain functions more than anything else. But so you believe it's possible, you set it as a goal, and as soon as you have it as a goal, then physically write it down. And I think that actually using your hands and some kind of writing instrument is actually going to be more powerful than you actually typing it on a keyboard into a digital thing. This is why I'm a huge fan of whiteboards. This is why I'm a fan of, and by the way, no, I'm not going to. But I'll just say this. This is why I'm a huge fan of having a notebook right next to my desk with a pen and writing things down. Because there's a couple things that happen when you write things down. You are physically forcing your brain to take what you're thinking, and you're actually processing that to make your hand and muscles move in such a fashion that it is actually physically writing out the words. And you're creating some kind of, synapses in your mind and all this other stuff, and you're visually seeing what you're writing. So of course, you can see it when you're typing, but still, I think there's just something powerful about handwritten writing down what your goal is. And so write it out, and then after you've written down your goal, that's the time when you need to start telling other people about it. Sometimes some of these goals you may want to just tell some people that you're closely aligned with, people who believe in this goal with you, people that are going to be, that are going to encourage you. They're not going to scoff at you and think you're, joke about your goal, laugh at you, tell you it's impossible. You make sure you're telling the right people about it, but certainly tell people about it. Talk about this goal that you have, what you want to accomplish. And here's the thing. So far, I've told you all of these things. And by the way, you can be in that position and not have any plan whatsoever on how to achieve this for days, weeks, or even months, sometimes even years. You may not know how it's going to happen. You may have no clue how this is going to be, what it's going to take to get you there. But what is important is that you believe it's possible, that you set it as a goal or a destination for which you're going after. You've written it down, and you're telling other people about it. And by the way, it's when you tell other people about it and start having conversations and stuff like that, it's when you're thinking about it, because you've actually set it as a goal. You actually are really thinking about this thing quite a bit. How am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? And you'll be surprised at how many times that you'll go to sleep and you wake up the next morning and all of a sudden you have to run straight to something to document some thoughts that you had. Or you might be, in the shower and all these thoughts just come to you. That's your subconscious mind proposing many different opportunities or possibilities for how this could become a reality. And as you get those things, write them down, because ultimately through the conversations and inspiration, all these different things, because you're looking for the opportunity will present itself ultimately, and you can create a plan based upon those things that come to you over time. And then once the plan has come, you write those things down. And once you know and it's not about the plan, how do you get from point A to point Z? It's okay, here's point Z. You might get some of, here's Q through, Y. But here's the deal. Right now, what's the next step? What is the next step? Always be take a step every day that gets you closer to that goal, or work on something, do something, have a conversation with somebody each day that gets you closer to that goal. And I will tell you, what I've just shared with you, believe it's possible, set it as a goal, write it down, tell others about it, and look out for the plan, and do something every day that gets you moving towards that goal becoming a reality. This is how I have achieved everything in my life. Now, obviously, I believe there's a great deal to do about faith and all kinds of other things, and I'm trying not to make this, an overly faith-based conversation. But the reality is that some of these things, I believe that they're just how things work, and it's how things were designed. It's the way that our mind works, and it's how we've been created. And I think that it will work. These steps will work not just for those who are believers, but for anybody. I really do believe that you can achieve great things if you follow those things. So believe it's possible. Set it as a goal. Write it down. Tell others about it. Stay on the lookout for the plan, and work the plan every day. Move closer toward the goal. And let me just share, my being in this house and in this studio where I am today, it was very hard for me to believe 18 months ago. And in fact, 18 months ago, I don't think I did believe. It took right before we signed the contract, before I convinced myself this is possible. And one thing that I will say, we signed the contract to build the house that we're in right now in June of last year. And what happened for me was that I knew that I needed $60,000 for the down payment for this house. And we did not have an extra $60,000 laying around. Now, at the time, we had a $30,000 emergency fund. We had no debt except for our old mortgage and things like that. Things were really good for us. But we knew, we were making a certain amount of money, and I knew without doing anything, I could probably come up with, $30,000, because just the way the business was going. But was I going to be able to have $60,000? And what I did is I said, I believe it's possible. Worst case scenario, and that's one of the things I looked at. Worst case scenario, what would happen? I would have the extra $30,000 we need, plus I could take the other $30,000 or whatever wasn't there out of our emergency fund. And of course, that's ridiculous, I kept telling myself, because, well, an emergency fund is not down payment for a new house. But emergency fund could be, well, I've been working a plan and I'm making things happen, and, well, I've committed to this loan and now it's an emergency. I could make it an emergency, but I knew that I didn't want to do that, but I believed it was going to be possible. And so we signed a contract, and I remember signing the contract in June of last year. And they said, and we asked, when is the house going to be done? And they said, well, it'll probably be done right around April 1st. And I said, well, can we close in May? Because that'll give me an extra month. I know I'm having an April A to Z course. I wanted to make sure that I had that extra lead time they said, yeah, no problem. We can close in May. That won't be a problem at all. And I thought it was going to be that close. Well, so all of a sudden I set that as my goal. I wrote it down. I started telling other people about it, and I said, guys, this is what I need to do. I need to come up with an extra $60,000 that is above and beyond what I have been doing. How can I do this? I went to my mastermind group, and lo and behold, I came up with all kinds of ideas and things that I could do. Some of those ideas were shutting, more stuff down so that I could focus in certain areas, and I started working the plan. And I've shared this before several times in Podcast Answer Man, but I had my best year ever last year. Podcast Answer Man, the business, or Ravenscraft Enterprises LLC, doing business as Podcast Answer Man, made over $500,000 in revenue. And I personal income last year made $279,000. The year before that was $121,000. So, long story short, we took our emergency fund from $30,000 to $60,000. We still had the $60,000 to put down on the house, and we had several. I think spent $40,000 in cash on all the things to furnish the home, and so we're still debt free, and we way overachieved what we set as our goal. So, and how did I do it? I believed it was possible. Number one. Number two, I set it as a goal. Number three, I wrote it down. I told other people about it, and the plans started coming. And as the plan came, I started working the plan. That's what I did. I started making those decisions and moving forward. So that's my suggestion on how you can take things to the next level, even though they seem right now just beyond your financial means. All right. So that was Garrett and Emmanuel. Thank you, guys. Next up is Matt's interviewee question. And you know what? I'll just share this real quickly. Matt has a podcast called Porn Free Radio. This is one of those shows you're probably not going to hear on your local radio station. Porn is a very controversial topic. I know some of folks out there think there's absolutely nothing wrong with porn, and some of you think that this is the worst thing in the world. And certainly there are people out there who don't want to be tied to an addiction of looking at porn, and that they struggle with that, and they're looking for a way and to become free from what they consider to be an addiction to porn. And so Matt, one of my A to Z alumni, podcasting A to Z alumni, created a podcast called Porn Free Radio. You can find it at pornfreeradio.com. He's got a great sounding podcast. He's got 13 episodes out already. And he recently wrote this question. He says, and by the way, he submitted this question not to me, but actually to the A to Z alumni group that is in Facebook. It's a private group just for people who have gone through the course. Anyway, he says, I was asked by somebody in my niche if I would be interested in interviewing him for my podcast. He was recently on Katie Couric last month and did a great job. He has many more followers than me. He has recently created a coaching and video program business for porn addiction. Two things. First, I intend to create similar products in the future. Second, his program is based on mindfulness, which is decidedly non-religious. Both myself and many of my listeners are Christians, and there may be some conflict with my spiritual beliefs. Any thoughts on how to respond? He could be a great guest, but is the risk too great that I might be endorsing something I don't totally agree with or promoting on a competitive program or promoting a competitive program? So, great question that Matt has here. And my thinking on this is, first and foremost, I believe in total transparency and total authenticity and all of these relationships and the content that I would share. So the first thing I would say is thank you to this person for having the desire to be on my show. It's certainly an honor to say, that to be recognized as a platform for him to take his message to the next level. I personally, I'd just be open and upfront with my potential concerns, saying, "Hey, I want to let you know I'm a Christian, and these are some of my convictions, and I'm concerned about this. I'm not saying that you don't have a ton of valuable things to offer. In fact, it sounds to me like you were very impressed with his Katie Couric interview. So, if there is additional value and experience that he can share that's going to help folks, regardless of whether or not it comes from a Christian perspective, is it going to be helpful to your audience? Number one, then that's fine. Now, if you want to give a disclaimer about some of your concerns and hesitation, certainly feel free to do that at the front of the show, and make sure that if you're going to do that, make sure to let him know that you want to do that before agreeing to have him on your show. So just work this out with him first, and then make sure, first you want to make sure, is it right for my audience? Do I think it's good for my audience? And then work out the details about your two concerns about, the different things. Just so you know, I'm going to put a disclaimer and let people know that, hey, you guys are adults, and we trust that you're going to test this material, and this isn't necessarily my endorsement. By the way, you mentioned that the fact that he's got competing products, the things that you might be creating yourself. Well, that's no problem at all. Potentially, you could work out you could ask to have access to his materials, and if they are worth endorsing, then you can endorse them and become an affiliate for them. Make sure that you let him know, though, that, hey, just so you know, down the road, I'm also going to be thinking about creating these things. Now, if at any point in your gut you get this feeling like this just isn't right, I just don't feel like I should be doing this, then you don't have to do it. By the way, I get probably about 5 to 10 people per month who say, Cliff, I'd be great for an interview on Podcast Answer Man. I'd love to be on your show. And I turn down almost every one of them. Matter of fact, maybe 3 people who have approached me without me approaching them made it onto the show. But so just follow your gut is where I would say on this. But as far as having a competing program, just say, hey, folks, here's the deal. People who are going to get to the place where they come to know, like, and trust his story or him and his story, they're going to buy from him, potentially. This could be a win-win-win situation for all of you, where you get a commission, they get something that helps them, and of course, he profits as well with sales that he wouldn't have had otherwise had he not been on your show. Now, the thing is that this could give you an indication of the market of how well do these materials do. You can actually you be inspired by the way that he's approached it, and it can help inform you on how you want to create your products and services. So this could be a great thing. And I think you can minimize, if not completely eliminate, all risks by just being upfront, transparent, and honest with the person that wants to be a guest on your show, and certainly with your audience about your reservations. And again, don't go against your own personal conviction. Whatever your conviction is, if your gut tells you then stay away from it. So there you go. Alrighty, it is now, we're 58 minutes into the audio recording here, and I just want to kind of wrap things up here by telling you about my first one-day live event. Now, of course, those of you who have been following my story know that I am in a brand new home, and in my home, actually, it also has a business in it. The entire lower level of our home is my business. Technically, you could consider it to be a basement, but everybody that's been here, they're like, oh my gosh, there's no way this is a basement. But it literally, my entire lower level, there's 1,200 square feet down here, and it is all my business. I'm in a 14 by 14 foot section of this one room right now, which is my studio, my office, if you will, or my set for Podcast Answer Man. And I've got these beautiful windows here. But I say it's a 14 by 14 foot room, but one of the 4 walls is not there. There's no wall because it's completely open up to a huge, I think it's like 30 foot by 14 foot or 16 foot or something like that, but a huge training area. It's completely open. And right now, I happen to have training tables. Like if you went to a conference, I have these tables all set up. I have really nice, I have, what do you call those? The tablecloths that are custom fit to it that go all the way down to the floor. And I'm getting ready to order my chairs. And I got the whiteboard up front. I'm going to be ordering another TV and a big stand for people to present from. But basically, I have a training space. I have an office meeting space that can easily, this room could easily do 15 people, about 15 to 18 people. But anyway, I built this space because I knew I wanted to host live one-day events, and also sometimes in the future some weekend workshops and some other exciting things that I'll be doing that I'll announce in the future. But I had an opportunity and an idea that I wanted to share with you guys, and that is, I know that many of you listening to my voice right now are already planning to be in Dallas, Texas for the podcast movement. Now, I want to tell you the name of my event. It is the Next Level One-Day Mastermind event. It's the Next Level One-Day Mastermind event. And it is not, you notice I didn't call it the podcast mastermind. It is not devoted to podcasting. Now, if you are a podcaster and the one thing in your business that you really need to get to the next level is your podcast, then you can certainly bring that as your topic of main area of focus and interest in this one-day event. But I want to encourage those of you who don't have a podcast, who are just listening to this podcast because you enjoy the perspective that I bring to business and taking your message and your business and your life to the next level. This isn't focused on podcasting. This is an event that is focused on taking your business pursuits to the next level. So very clear on this. This is not a podcast focusing event. This is for people. And by the way, who should attend this event that I'm doing? The event that I'm doing should be people who own their own business, the people who are building a business that they own, they run, that they're doing full time. That's who should be looking at this. When is the event going to be taking place? It is going to be in Dallas, Texas. It is going to be on Friday, August 15th. By the way, this is not associated with the podcast movement at all. They have nothing to do with this. Matter of fact, the folks, the organizers of that event, they're hearing about this for the first time just like you are. There's only about 5 people that knew about this before I'm actually speaking these words. And so this is not tied to the podcast movement. It's not tied to that conference. It's not tied to those organizers. This is 100% my event. The podcast movement conference is on Saturday, the 16th of August, and Sunday, the 17th of August. My event is actually going to be Friday, the 15th of August, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. It is going to be in the same place as the event of the podcast movement. It is going to be in the Westin Galleria. I have reserved the Galveston Room for the entire day on Friday the 15th of August. And it is set up as a very nice-looking boardroom. In fact, when you go into the room, there are 12 chairs that sit around it, and it's a big, huge boardroom table, like if it was in a big business or whatever. It's got a big giant screen television up on the wall for us to do any presentations from and stuff like that. So what is this meeting about? It is a one-day mastermind. Now, you guys have heard me talk about mastermind groups over and over again. Everything that I've been involved in mastermind groups since 2010. My mastermind group that I'm a part of every single week is with Pat Flynn from smartpassiveincome.com, with Michael Stelzner from socialmediaexaminer.com, Mark Mason from Late Night Internet Business. It's latenightim.com or masonworld.com. Anyway, and then there's Leslie Samuel from becomeablogger.com. These guys are my mastermind group members, and my business and my life and everything is radically awesome today as a result of so much inspiration I get from these guys when we're in this things called the hot seat, where you can say, hey guys, this is what I've got going on. These are the things I want to accomplish. Here's what I'm facing right now. How do I get to this next level? I need some feedback, some advice on how to achieve this. And then you just open up the floor and they start pouring advice into you. Well, I was also a part of another mastermind group with my great friend Ray Edwards and Dan Miller and a bunch of other wonderful guys like Frank Viola and Jeff Goins and Tracy Childers and all these other wonderful folks. I could list all of them, but it would take me too long. But anyway, we got together, and the first time we ever did a face-to-face meetup, we did this one-day mastermind live event that we did together. And what we did is we started at 8 a.m. and we went till 5 p.m. And the setup is that each person has an allotted amount of time, and if you were to participate, you'd get about 30 minutes of time completely devoted to you. And the first few minutes, you share, what your business is, what you've got going on, what you're looking to achieve, and then what kind of struggles you're having, or what kind of hurdles you're facing, or what it is that you want advice or help on, how to achieve that one thing that you want to take to the next level. And then, you want to spend as little time talking as possible so people can give you wonderful advice. And what I found is not only did I get the advice and the help that I needed for my one thing, but man, hearing the things that other people are doing in their business, the approaches that they have, and the feedback they're getting. You benefit not just from what you come for, but what the other people have come for as well. And so basically, this group, this one-day event is going to happen on a Friday, August 15th from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And if you want to attend, it is not inexpensive. It is a $1,000 event, and the space is limited to only 10 individuals. So it's myself and 10 of you who are hearing my voice can attend this. And if you want to participate, not everybody who contacts me is going to be able to participate, because I want to make sure that it's right for you. A lot of folks out there would be willing to pay the $1,000 to spend the one day, but I want to make sure that it's an event that's going to be right for you. So if you want to talk to me about attending this event on Friday, August 15th in Dallas, Texas, the day before the conference starts over there for the podcast movement, then send me an email, cliff@podcastanswerman.com. Again, if you want more information, cliff@podcastanswerman.com. All right, I am going to go ahead and start the music here and wrap things up. So that's going to wrap it up. Anyway, folks, lots of wonderful things happening here in my space, my part of the world. I'm really excited about things that I haven't even announced to you guys yet. Bigger things happening in the future. I've got about maybe 25% of my closing keynote ready and prepared for the podcast movement. I need to get working on that. Also, we just launched, or not just launched, but just signed up our 9th and 10th student to the next episode or session of Podcasting A to Z. That is our September session. It's going to start Monday, September 1st. And that is actually going to have, I think, a limit of 30 students, and there are 10 students already signed up. So if you're interested in that, details over at podcastinga2z.com. And then I'm trying to think here. Update on the live stream. So I've been sharing over the last couple of weeks all my struggle and journey to kind of take my live streaming YouTube stuff to the next level. I'm happy to announce to you that as of last week, everything worked brilliantly. Now, of course, we're recording into software, so you never know what could happen, but let me just share this. Last week, the audio looked great, or the audio sounded great. The video looked great. The syncing of my lips to the audio was perfect. Absolutely everything just went beautifully well. And today, it literally took me, I literally had all the lighting taken down. I had the camera taken down, the laptop that has everything recording to it. That was in another room of the house. It probably took me about 7 minutes to set everything up. And it looks like it's working perfectly. So I assume that's going to be there. So if you want to see the video recording of the live broadcast that I did, head over to podcastanswerman.com/367. Again, that's podcastanswerman.com/367. And I think that's going to pretty much wrap it up. I think that's a lot of announcements, all for one thing. But if you are interested in the one-day mastermind event, the next level one-day event, email me, cliff@podcastanswerman.com. And if you want to sign up for Podcasting A to Z, I know that the September session is going to sell out. So head over to podcastinga2z.com and get registered as quickly as you can. And with that, my friends, I encourage you to take everything you do in life to the next level.
Helping you to get the thing you do to the next level.
And that's a wrap. Alrighty, I'll tell you what, I'm going to leave the video going. Should I leave the video going, or should I go ahead and stop it and upload it? I tell you what, I'm going to stop the video. I'm going to leave the video on for those of you who are live, but I'm going to stop the video for the recording so that it can start uploading, so that I can put it into the show notes at the same time that I publish the audio version of it. So anyway, thank you for tuning into the video recording of this live broadcast. If you want to join us in the chat room, I do chat with folks before the show and after the show, and sometimes I kind of take a view into the chat room while I'm recording. But if you want to join me on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, head over to podcastanswerman.com/live. There's a chat room there, and would love to have you join us. So anyway, yeah, I think that's it. If you're brand new to podcasting, you're not quite sure what podcasting is all about, I do encourage you to maybe look up podcasting, find an application for your phone. If you're an iPhone user, I would recommend that you use Apple's Podcasts app. It's free, made by Apple, and it's wonderful. It's what I use. And if you're on an Android phone, you can download, I would say Stitcher, the Stitcher radio app, and it's STITCHER. So just look for Stitcher. And when you do get those applications, make sure that you look for Podcast Answer Man. And yeah, that'll get you started. God bless, and thank you for tuning in. Until next time, I encourage you guys to take everything you do to the next level as well.